Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. I appreciate everybody joining me today. Looks like we have a pretty good crowd. Now there is when on your GoToWebinar, you do have an area where you can ask questions. I will try to get to everybody's questions. If it's relevant to what we're looking at, I'll answer it right then. If it's not but relevant to the webinar, I will try to answer it at the end. And if it's not really relevant to today's webinar but something specific to your account, please email it to help, H-E-L-P, at idxbroker.com, and we will try to help you from there. Again, my name is Cassie, and today what we're going to be doing is just going over how to use the back end of your IDX original account. So if you are just starting with IDX Broker, curious where things are located, this should help you find them. And if you are familiar with it already, this might still help you find items that you didn't know were there previously. So the first item that we will want to talk about, of course, is logging in. When you get your welcome email, it'll have a username, a password, and a login link for you. Typically, that link is going to look like your website. Let's see, I just got a question about whether this was also going to be for Platinum. No, this is specifically for Original. So I do apologize if you scheduled time to look at Platinum, because we will not cover anything about Platinum on this webinar. So anyway, so you'll get your login link. You will get your password and username, and you'll just want to log in. Usually this screen will look like your website. On my demo account, it's going to be very bare bones here because I don't actually have a wrapper on it right now, but I'm just going to go ahead and log into my demo. So this is the first thing that you will see when you log into your account, is going to be your dashboard. And this will have some summary information there. It'll have things like traffic information, most recent leads, account notes, referring URLs, that kind of thing. And most of the things that you will see here are also going to be available in other areas of your account. We're just going to go through this control panel step by step. And we're going to look at what I think are the most important parts, and I'm actually going to start with things that I think are the most important to look at when you first get your account. Now, I've got a lot of people in on this webinar today, so I'm already getting a lot of questions, and I'm afraid I might not get to them all, but I am just going to pause quickly to take a brief glance at what has already come in. And so if you don't get your questions answered today, I do apologize in advance for that, but I'm just going to take a moment to look at what is already coming in here. Windows 8.1 should already be supported. I'm not aware of any problems with that. If you're having problems on a system with Windows 8.1, please go ahead and send that to help@idxbroker.com. Is it possible to determine the approximate location the URL came from? That would be a referring URL, and we will actually look at traffic stats a little bit later. Okay, so what I'm going to start with, what I usually tell people to look at as the first things they look at when they log into their IDX account for the first time, and then we'll just kind of go through the rest of the tabs in order. So the very first thing that I think people need to look at is account management in the main menu, and then page links in the submenu. That's because this is a list of all the primary tools that come with your IDX account. These are the things you're actually going to be adding to your website. So these you really want to look through and determine which tools you want. So for example, the one that I really like is the advanced search page. Is probably, if I were a realtor, is probably the one that I would like best. This is because it's a detailed search page, gives you fields that are reflective of what you're used to seeing in your MLS. And you can, when you want to add these things to your site, you just take the link, copy that, paste it right into your site navigation as an external link that opens in the same window. Usually you will see these pages reflect your site design. This being a demo account, I don't really have a site design to mimic on this one. So this is very bare bones, but you will usually see this reflect your own site design. And you literally just copy and paste this URL into your site. There are lots of other tools other than that advanced search page. There are property type specific links if you're concentrating on, say, rental properties. A lot of these are very self-explanatory. Featured properties is going to be your listings. If you're a single agent, it's just your listings. If you're an office account, it'd be the listings for your office. If we scroll down, we've got one that I think is very underutilized is something called the Email Update Sign-Up Tool. That is a two-step process where your visitor can enter search criteria for the type of property they're looking for. And then step 2, they enter their contact information. This signs them up for email updates so that they get emails each day with new listings that match their search criteria. And it also captures their contact information for you so that you have their information as a lead. And if you want to contact them on other subjects or send them drip emails or enter them in a CRM, you can do that as well. And I think that's a very useful tool that doesn't get used or noticed often enough. So that's one that I like to point out. Sitemap probably also does not get utilized often enough. We do not support XML sitemaps. I get that question a lot. And but we do have this PHP sitemap, which really helps with organic indexing. See, I do have another question in regarding whether this will be available online. It should be available online in a week or so, but there's also a very similar one recorded last August that is already available online, idxbroker.com/support. You'll see a topic for training and webinars. So if at any time that you have to leave today but you want to go back and review similar material to what we're going over today, you can get it there. You'll see one called Introduction to IDX Broker, and it will have the information you're looking for there. So account management page links is the first thing I would like everybody to look at when they first log into their IDX account. I do occasionally get some complaints about this navigation here because it's a little sketchy. If you move your mouse too quickly, you'll lose the submenu you're looking for. A technique that I've adopted is to hover over the main menu item you want, drag the mouse down, and back up to the submenu. I do get that complaint sometime, but it should that should help if you're experiencing a similar problem. I'm also getting some, and again, I apologize, I've got so many people on this webinar. I'm getting a lot of questions. Looks like I've got a couple coming in right now that are specific to individual people's accounts. Please email those to help@idxbroker.com. We're simply not going to have time to cover tech support issues during this webinar. The next item I ask people to look at when they are first getting used to their IDX account is the widgets menu. That doesn't look good, but I also have demo data on here, so I apologize. But the widgets menu is where you're going to get things like showcases, slideshows, quick search forms, little chunks of code that rather than pasting in links to full-size pages that are hosted on our end, instead it's going to be chunks of code that you can paste into a page hosted on your end. So maybe you want to list some properties on your home page. Maybe you want to have a quick search form on your home page. This is where you'll find those items. Showcase and slideshow settings. These are simply intended to display your listings. Now, you do have some options where you can choose what kind of properties you're going to display with those, but usually you're going to use them to display your own listings. Custom slideshows and showcases. are going to be similarly formatted to what you see under the regular showcase and the regular slideshow, but you will be able to choose criteria and display listings from the entire MLS. You won't be limited to your own listings. So you could do a slideshow for a specific community or something like that. You would just choose the type of search form you want to use to build it. And let's say you're doing one for foreclosure listings, maybe in a specific city. You enter the criteria you want, you hit generate code, and it'll give you a chunk of code that you copy and paste into your website wherever you want it to display. Building a custom showcase works the same way. It's just formatted as a table in rows and columns instead of as a slideshow. A custom search form is exactly what it sounds like. It's just a very small search form. You'll have some options for how you want to build this. You can drag and drop these fields over and format this the way you want to. Or you can use a preset template, and that usually works for most people and is easier to create. And then when you have what you want, you hit generate script or generate HTML, depending on the type of site you want or the type of code you want. And then just copy and paste that into your site. And then we also have a wildcard search form, which is going to be a more simplified search where you can search for bedrooms, bathrooms, city, state, zip code, square feet from a single field. Featured agent only going to apply to office accounts. It just simply randomly selects an agent each time the page loads. And then lead login, which is just any registered leads where they can log in with their existing username and password. On that custom search form, it is limited to the fields that are available there, and it is fairly limited. So it's only going to be, let's see, the available fields are price, square feet, beds, baths, cities. So that is pretty limited. Now you can create custom search forms. Technically you can build any search form you want to as long as you use our field names, but it's going to require some HTML experience, and I usually recommend a tool like Firebug or developer tools depending on the browser that you use for finding the field names you want. But technically you can build essentially whatever you want to, but it won't be in any kind of automated WYSIWYG tool like this. You will have to actually work with the HTML. So those are the first two things I usually ask people to look at when they log in. And from here, I think we're just going to start going through the tabs available. We already looked at the dashboard a little bit. It's kind of your home page when you log into IDX. Had a question earlier about referring URLs. We do have some traffic stats available. They are under account management and then traffic stats. Or excuse me, my dashboard and then traffic stats. We don't have many analytical tools available, but you can use third-party tools like Google Analytics or Stat Counter in combination with your IDX account. You'd be pasting those into what we call your global wrapper, which we're going to look at briefly in a little bit. That's the copy of your site design that is stored on your IDX account. If you are already using Google Analytics or Stat Counter or something similar on your IDX account, those will typically already be pasted into your wrapper before you even get access to your account, unless you're working with a developer partner who will handle that for you at that point. But we do keep track of the referring URLs and the page hits on your IDX account, and this is where you can find those. Account notes, you probably won't have a great deal of use for these, but this is where it'll keep track of changes in your billing information or thing like that. Notices, I actually would recommend having an occasional look at. Just log in every now and then. You'll see the important ones highlighted on your dashboard, so on the home page when you first log in. But you'll also find them here under My Dashboard and Notices. And this is going to be things like changes to the MLS you're working with. Let's say they change vendors and some field names have changed. You'll find those kinds of notices here. That's the most frequent sort of thing that gets posted there. But if there's a big feature change, you would also see that here. And that's it for the dashboard menu. The next menu item is account management. And this is going to be very basic things, usually. Contact information, pretty self-explanatory. You've got your name, you've got display name, which is what's usually going to display on the front end when we have to display contact information or disclaimers or things like that. Addresses, phone numbers, that kind of thing. So that's pretty self-explanatory. You actually can use some basic HTML in this additional contact info area. So if you wanted to do some line breaks or formatting, you can do that, and that'll show up on your contact page. Designer info, more contact information. Billing info screen. This is a secure page. And you would just hit Edit Billing Info anytime you want to change that billing information. Now, domain control, probably the least self-explanatory thing in this menu. Domain control is so your IDX pages by default, they're going to be on a subdomain of idxbroker.com, so or idxco.com, so yourdomain.idxco.com. You may want them on your own domain for SEO reasons, so you can set up a custom subdomain. This page is where you would do that, and you will want to hit that knowledge base article that it links to from here. We got a few links to it from here, and it will walk you through setting up a custom subdomain, a CNAME record pointing to idxco.com, and then coming back and pasting it in here. Now, it is going to link out to some help topics at the more popular DNS providers, say GoDaddy, Bluehost, GatorHost. So it will link out to help topics to a few of those. But you are going to need to actually be able to log in at your DNS provider and set that up on their end before you can come back and paste that in here. But that's a pretty good feature because it will let you put everything on a subdomain of your own domain. And again, I've got several questions coming in that I'm just going to take a moment to review here real quick. I had a good question about showcases that I think may be useful to a lot of people. So I'm just going to go briefly back to the widgets showcase settings. So one of the problems with showcases, if you decide you want to do a custom list here and you just want to select the MLS numbers, that means that you can determine exactly what listings display in that showcase. However, it's not going to be able to update as properties enter and leave the market because it's searching by MLS ID. It's not searching by things like neighborhood or city. So you will end up with sold and pending listings in that showcase and listings that eventually end up getting marked as invalid. I don't recommend doing a custom list if you can help it. I recommend searching by a subdivision and doing a custom showcase or something like that instead, if at all possible. But if you do decide to do a custom list, then you will have to occasionally come in and update it. And to do so, you just hit that remove checkbox to pull one off, and hit the update custom list, and that'll delete those. And you can add additional ones after that. Back to account management, we already looked at domain control, page links, change password. I don't know that we even need to look at that because that is very self-explanatory. You would have to enter your current password and then your new one. It is a 12-character maximum, and of course we recommend that you do something that has a special character, mix of caps and lowercase, but that of course is up to you. You're not going to have a lot of confidential information in your IDX account. Even when you log into your IDX account, billing info is the most sensitive thing here, and you can only see the last 4 digits of your card number. So it's typically not going to be terribly sensitive information, although you will have your leads listed in here, and it may have their phone numbers or email addresses. Next item is going to be My Preferences. There are far too many options in here for us to spend time going through item by item, but this is just where you set default behaviors for some of your IDX pages. And I'll go through some of the ones that I think are important or overlooked. One is going to be the fact that you can set default prices for your search pages, and you can actually do different default prices for different property types. The most common situation is going to be rentals. Obviously, you don't want rentals to have a $100,000 minimum. And you can also change the names. We have kind of buckets that are built into the system as far as property types go. Single-family residential is the default label for residential properties. A lot of people, depending on their MLS, may want to call those homes and condos. They may want to call it residential. They might even want to call it houses and townhouses. Kind of depends on the area that you're in, but you actually can change the label that's displayed to your visitors. New search link, most of you will want to ignore. That's going to be for programmers that are building their own search pages and pointing the new search link at a different page other than the IDX pages. Email update options. You can specify a different from address than your default email address if you would like, and you can elect to receive summaries or carbon copies of every email that gets sent to your leads. So that would be where you would do that, is on this My Preferences page. You can also upload a logo that will display on result cells when it's your listing. And you can also upload a custom image for properties without photos. That means that where we would usually display the photo coming soon logo, you can display something of your choosing instead. Details page options, you have an option between Yahoo, Microsoft, and WalkScore if you want to put a map on every details page that shows where that property is. WalkScore, I think, is the best option for most people that are working in urban areas. If you're not in an urban area, maybe Yahoo or Microsoft instead. Conversion tracking code, again, a lot of people are going to use this. That is referring to things that you get from campaigns like AdWords, where you have a specialized set of code tracking where people are coming from and how frequently you're accomplishing your goals from those campaigns. And at the bottom, the SEO options. These actually are pretty important. I would recommend most people take a look at them. These are like formulas. So you have a number of tags you can choose from, and what you're doing here is setting up title or keyword or description tags on your IDX details pages. A details page is for an individual property where you're looking at details about that one listing that reflect information about that listing, which ensures that that information is going to be unique, which Google loves. And it also just gives you some options for catering to what the people in your market search for, which sometimes you'll know better than we will. But you have a number of items to choose from, so you would copy those from this area here, and you'll copy them exactly as you see them, including case and curly brackets, and paste them in here, and just arrange them the way that you want to. Title is what you see when you're in a search engine. You see that blue link text. Description is the excerpt that you see below that, and that needs to be human readable. Keyword is essentially useless these days, but there are still a few search engines that use it, and that needs to be a comma-separated list of words. So it doesn't have to be human readable. Nobody's going to see it but the search engine, but it does need to be a comma-separated list of words. So you can just copy and paste these in as you see fit on those. And that's actually a pretty useful feature there because it can give each of those pages unique content. When it comes to, so also in the preferences menu, when it comes to determining what cities you're going to display in your city list, there are a couple of ways that you can change that. One is search list filters, and one is custom search lists. They work in almost opposite fashions. Search list filters lets you take the dynamic city list, which is going to reflect exactly what we get from the MLS. So every city in this list has at least one listing in the MLS that we're getting back. And I'm currently displaying some test data from Florida, and that's kind of notorious for having listings outside the traditional coverage area. So let's say that I do not want to display Abbeville. I would add it to the filter, and that takes it out. The opposite option is custom search lists, which lets me build a list from scratch. And I just choose exactly which cities I want, move those to the list on the other side, and then that becomes my custom city list. So you can do it either way, and usually I think custom search list is the preferred method for most people. It depends really on how wide an area you want to cover. If you've got a very small list of cities you want to cover, then the custom search list is going to be much more convenient for you to create. And then syndication is just a list of links that will have your featured properties on it. And you would take these links and copy and paste them into the Trulia submission form or the Zillow.com submission form. If you have somebody that's doing some custom development, there are some feeds unique to your account. The advanced feed down here, which I don't have because, again, I'm looking at some demo data, is going to let you parse that information out and actually build what you want with it. It will be limited to only your featured properties, though. You will not be able to get MLS data as a whole from here. I had some questions about specific fields, like how you would do a HUD home or REO or short sale or something like that. That actually is going to be unique to your MLS. Every MLS makes different fields available, so I would recommend either giving us a call or emailing those in, help@idxbroker.com, 1-800-421-9668. Because some of those are going to be unique to your MLS and not items we'll be able to look at during the webinar. And that is also true regarding a distinction between single family and condo. The way to do that will, again, vary a little bit from one MLS to the next. Sold, no, we don't actually currently access sold. You should have access to your own recent archives, but it would only be your featured listings. And back to the dynamic tags, I had a question. I had another question about the SEO items here. these, the dynamic means that it's building these on the fly. You do not have to set it up one listing at a time. It's a formula. You're setting up a formula. So you're saying, I want every listing to display the listing number and then the listing address and then the display name. So you're literally setting up a formula. So you only have to do it once. You do not have to do it for every single listing. Moving on to the next menu, Customize. We'll go over this a little briefly because a lot of these items are going to be items that some of you would have your designers deal with or that kind of thing. So we'll look at the ones that most people are going to be dealing with. The first one is the template tool, and this one anybody can use. There's really nothing complicated about it. What this is just a set of ready-made layouts for the different types of pages. And you can come in here and you can flip through the different templates available. And you can choose the one that you like. And then apply it to the page. So I've just changed the layout of my search page. Now you would still have your branding, your navigation, your sidebar, your menu and everything, but it's just changing the layout of that interior section, the part of it that is IDX provided. But you can come in and change those anytime you want to, and there are a set of templates available for most of the most important pages. Not every page. The roster doesn't have one. Bio pages don't have other options available, but you do have some template choices for the most important, particularly search results details, which are what most people are looking at. The wrapper, I don't have anything in here currently, but what this would typically be is 2 halves of an HTML document. This is where the copy of your IDX, or of where your site design is stored. This is what would make your IDX pages look like the rest of your website. And this is where you would find that. We also have global wrapper means it applies to your entire account. You can override it. We have wrappers for types of categories. We also have wrappers that you can apply to specific types of pages. So you can override the global and have, say, maybe your details page have a different sidebar than the rest of your website. You can do that. Subheaders are a bit more straightforward to use because they don't have to be complete HTML documents. So a wrapper has to be, you know, I could put a brief one in here real quick. Let's see. I might end up losing focus on my browser, so I apologize if that takes place. I don't need that. And I hope I'm not wasting anybody's time, but I did get some questions regarding what on earth is a wrapper. So I'm just going to put the absolute simplest wrapper that could possibly exist in here, and hope that that will help illustrate it. A wrapper is 2 halves of an HTML document. Usually the way we create it is we go to one of your website pages, we right-click, we copy the source code, we take everything that comes before your content area and we paste it in this part in the global header code. And then we take everything that comes after it and we paste it down here in this part in the footer code. If you don't have any familiarity with HTML, you're probably not going to want to work with this. You'll want to have either us or your designer work with this. But if you do, this is where you will come to make changes, is customize in the global HTML wrapper. So that's how a wrapper works. The subheaders, again, are a bit less complicated because they don't have to be a complete HTML document. They don't have to be HTML at all. You can put plain text in here. Anything you enter in these is going to show up right at the top of the IDX page. So I didn't do any formatting, meaning it didn't get centered or anything, but I've got this as a subheader here at the top now. So that is what you can do with subheaders, and they are great for adding some additional information when you think maybe your visitors are going to need some clarification about how to use a tool, or maybe a call to action if you're wanting them to sign up or something like that. So subheaders are actually quite useful and pretty straightforward to use, and if you do have HTML capabilities, you can format them however you want to. Great question about being able to see and edit HTML and CSS for the templates. You won't be able to edit the HTML. Now, you do have access to edit your wrapper, but that's not going to give you access to that interior content of the page. You do have the choice of templates, and then you do have CSS access, and that is under the next tab, which is Customize and then Custom CSS. So that is what you'll find here. These are the style sheets that go along with whatever templates you've selected, and you can make edits to that as desired. And if you make an edit that you don't like, then you just go back to Customize Templates and you reselect the template that you wanted as your starting point, and that'll reset everything. And you won't have to worry about any errors that have been made in the CSS. But yes, you do have CSS access. Custom links is a good one. CSS stands, sorry, I apologize. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It's a language that you use to modify things that are already in the HTML. So you can add margins to elements or change text colors on paragraphs or things like that. And that's the kind of thing that you would use CSS for. Again, some of the items in the Customize menu are going to be items you might refer to a designer or something like that. But they are options that are available, and many of our designers really like them. But yeah, they are often looked over by the agents, and I totally understand why, because y'all are selling real estate. All right, so now we are going to look at custom links. These are what a lot of people would refer to as landing pages. Let's say you want to put a page on your website that refers to a specific community. You would go to Customize and then Custom Links, and this will give you a search form. I would typically myself use the advanced search because that's going to give me more options. And let's say I'm looking for homes for Air Base Elementary School District. I would just select that, hit Generate Link. It'll give me a results URL. And we can use this as is, and here's what it would look like, is it's just a results page is all it is. But it's a results page that shows the listings that I have specified. It will update as properties enter or leave the market. It basically just reruns the search every time. And you can use that as is, which is straightforward, or even better, you can give it a name and save it. So I will call this Air Base Ellen. And from there, I have the option to give it a unique subheader, so some content unique to this link. I can talk about the Air Force Base. or I can talk about the community, or I can talk about the school. I can give it its own title tag, and I can scroll down the bottom, give it its own description and keyword tags. So these are great for SEO because they are unique content. They are catering to very specific things. They have their own title, description, keyword, and then subheaders. I can't stress enough how good subheaders are for SEO because they are unique content that not just the search engine but the visitor sees. And when a search engine knows that a visitor is also seeing it, they know that it's relevant, and that counts for more to them. So I can't stress the importance of doing subheaders enough. But you can create these saved links based on any criteria that's available from your MLS, and you can build as many of them as you want to, and then just copy and paste those URLs into your website the same way that you would any other URL, any other item from under page links. Let's see, somebody asked about these showing up in the sitemap. Results URLs, so standard results URLs never show up in the sitemap because that's just somebody running a search, and those aren't going to show up in the sitemap because they're not a fixed page on the site. These saved links don't show up in the sitemap, but they do show up in what we would call the custom link showcase. Let's see. There we go, custom results page showcase. So they actually show up on a separate page. You can put it on your site and it'll work almost identically to a sitemap. But a standard results URL never going to show up in your sitemap. And if you're trying to generate a XML sitemap, we actually don't support those. So that's just kind of going to depend on whatever program you're using to piece that together. The last item in the Customize menu is one that I think is going to be really useful to most people. You don't need any programming knowledge for it. It's going to be Customize in the main menu, Advanced Search in the submenu. And that is where you can pick and choose which fields show up on that page. If you see one you don't like, you just hit the minus button. If you have one you want to add, you just click it in the list. And if you want to rearrange them, you just drag and drop them. It's fairly straightforward. I frequently am asked if people can change the list of options shown here. No, unfortunately you cannot. We don't keep a master list of the options in these fields. We just build it on the fly based on what's in that field. But you do have the option of changing things from a list to an input so that people just type in what they're looking for instead of actually looking at the list. So you do have that option, but I don't have a way to just display it as a list and say delete canal view. All right, sorry, I think I missed a couple of questions here. Saved links, recording visitor traffic on those. We do record the number of views. You will see those when you're looking at your list of saved links. You will see the number of times they've been viewed, and you can sort by it and see how popular they are. Now, unless that is a registered lead, you're not going to have a way to track it to the lead. We'll get to the lead management page shortly, and you'll get some information about how to view what your leads have been looking at. And regarding upcoming webinars, I'm afraid I don't have a good answer for you right now. It would take me a minute to pull up that information, and I don't want to spend that while I have a lot of busy people on the phone. So I will have to ask you to just send that in by email, help@idxbroker.com. We've already looked at the widgets menu. Mobile, this is going to be the iPhone app. It's just a application for an iPhone that you can install that will let you search residential listings by map. You paste this badge into your website. It'll give the visitor a code to enter. In the case of my demo account, it's just the number 9. And it will center on your default center point for your own map search, or if they have it enabled, their current location. And then they will just be able to do a residential search by map, very much like the map search page on your website. It does not work on Android. It is iPhone only. And so that is what we've got there. All right, so now we're on to lead management. Manage leads is the first page that comes up, and it is simply just a list of your leads. The most important information here is going to be, of course, you've got the name of the lead and their email address. The status column will give you a little information. Verified means that either you entered them manually, or they took action on that email that goes out to them after they register and clicked on the link and verified that, yes, I am paying attention. So that's what verified means. Not verified means they signed up on their own. They did not take any action on that email. If their status is not verified, the difference in functionality is that we will not send them email updates. So if they have signed up for a email update, if they have saved a search, there are new listings coming in that match their search criteria, we are not going to send them anything until we know that we have a good email address for them. This is part of attempting to comply with the CAN-SPAM Act. You can come in and just hit where it says not verified, and it'll verify it for you. So you can do that yourself manually. But they can also do it by clicking on the link in the email that gets sent to them when they sign up. Disabled means either they've been manually disabled or they've simply been inactive for so long that the system assumes they don't care anymore. The default period for that, I believe, is 90 days, but you can change that, and we will actually get to that setting shortly. We also have traffic history links here that will let you see the traffic history of those leads. You can get to their saved searches and saved properties. If they have saved any, you can see their assigned agents. And then when we click on the name of the lead, you can see their full contact information if they've entered it or you've required it. You can actually see their saved searches. You can see their saved properties. And you can create new ones for them if you want to. So let's say you're signing someone up for email updates. You can actually create a new saved search for them. Let's see, editing a search, no, there actually isn't a good way to edit a search. You would have to delete and then recreate it. And as far as personal messages to those leads, not for an individual lead. The only emails that go out from our system are those emails with the new properties that match their saved searches. Now you can do a page wrapper or a subheader for those email updates that go out, but it's going to be the same for every lead that goes out. So it's not going to be personalized to that lead. If you have an office account, you can do unique subheaders per agent, but not per lead. Other information you can see about your lead, down at the bottom, and let's see, this one may not be a good example. Let's see if I have a better one. I'll just look at an older one. Well, down at the bottom, you will typically see notes here. So if the lead signed up themselves, you will see what they submitted on that initial contact form. If they signed up on the front end, you'll see what they submitted in that initial contact form. You can also see any forms they've submitted since then, so say more information requests or requests to schedule showing for listings. You'll see those. And you can also add your own leads here, or your own notes here. The leads cannot see these. It's totally safe if you need to write something like, this lead is problematic. They won't be able to see that. So these are private and only visible to you or the agent assigned to that lead if you are on an office account. Add new lead. That one's pretty straightforward, just name, email address, contact information. Inactive leads, we spoke briefly of that. So okay, it's 180 days is actually the default setting, it looks like, as far as when a lead becomes disabled. And what disabled means is we're going to quit attempting to send them email updates. But if they came back to the site and tried to log in after becoming disabled, we actually would just immediately re-enable them. So they don't lose access to the site, but we do quit bothering to send them email updates once they're marked as disabled. Had a question regarding working with commercial. I don't know what MLS that is regarding, so you will probably want to send that into help@idxbroker.com. The next item to look at is lead management, lead registration preferences. This is going to be where you can set up forced registrations, and this is a pretty commonly used feature. People may want to force users to register before they can view certain types of information, and so this is where you would do that. You could say, I want to force users to register before they can even get to a search page, or I want to let users search, but I want to force them to register before they can view their search results. Or you might say, and this is probably the most common way that it's used, I want to let people search and I want to let them view results, but before they can view any details about listings, I want to have them register. Or maybe I want to let them view details about 3 listings and then make them register before they can view a 4th one. That's actually a pretty popular way of doing it. You'll also see that you have some options here that say request instead of force. The only difference between force and request, you get the same form, you get the same pop-up. The difference is that a request has a link that you can click to skip that step and continue, and perhaps come back to it later, because a request is actually a recurring thing, so every 3 rather than after 3. And a force will not let you go forward at all without registering. So here's where you set up that kind of thing. Let's see. This one, leave on no. That's not one that almost anyone's going to use. That would be a very custom development option where you redirect to a third-party website on forced registration. Verification required for access to my listing manager. The default on this is going to be no. I recommend leaving it at no. If you set it to yes, then it means they're going to be blocked from your website until they've hit that verify link in their email. You can bypass any settings that you have set up here for your featured properties, so those listings that are yours. Some people do that. And then CAPTCHA is that little thing that you see on registration forms sometimes that has the pictures of letters that you have to type in before you can submit. I don't recommend turning it on unless you're getting a bunch of spam. I have some questions about conflict in time. I know that these take a while, and we're up on an hour, which actually is a little longer than we typically take. So if anybody is running out of time, please feel free. You can email help@idxbroker.com. You can email webinars@idxbroker.com and request links. I should have it up shortly. There's also a very similar recording, shortly, as in within about a week. There's also a similar webinar available if you go to idxbroker.com/support. There's a training and webinars category, and you'll find similar past recordings there. But feel free to email in and request the link once it's available. Or you can just check the website, and I totally understand those that have to go. I know that we're running a little long, and I will try to speed it up. Default field options. Optional is, so you have some choices. Email and name are going to be required regardless. The others are optional by default, and you can pick and choose which ones you want to make required or hidden. Maybe you don't want to request a password ever. Maybe you don't want an address here refers to physical address. Maybe you never want to show that. These other form options just give you the option to customize the messages that show at the top. Lead registration form actually refers to the form itself. Lead verification options refers to the message that shows up on the thank you page. And lead email verification options refers to the message that shows up in the email that actually goes out to the lead. And then lead syndication options is only going to be relevant to you if you are a subscriber to Top Producer. We have a push that we can send new leads to Top Producer. I'm still getting some questions that appear to be specific to individual accounts. Please send those to help@idxbroker.com. We simply cannot cover those during the webinar. Let's see. So custom lead form, this just lets you add individual fields to the registration form. On my example, I've got Twitter ID, down payment, pre-approved, time frame. All you have to do here is enter the label, the type of field you want, whether you want it to be just an input or a text area, how large you want it to be, and then add the field and say whether it's required or not. Contact routing, I don't want to go over in much detail because this only applies to office accounts, and many of you are going to be individual agents. But we've got 3 types. Core fields is where you can set up routes that are based on price ranges or cities and assign those to specific agents on your account. Well, not just price ranges or cities, but counties, states, zip codes, multiple listing service, low price, high price, and assign those to specific agents. And so anytime a request comes in for information on a specific listing and it falls into those criteria, it'll go to the agent you've assigned to that. Round robin just rotates through a list of agents. And disabled means everything goes to the primary contact for the account. And then export is exactly that. It's a way to get a CSV. You'll see that you can filter by certain options, and it will give you a spreadsheet of the leads that you have in your account. And you will want, if you want all of the leads on your account and you want all of them in a spreadsheet, then just don't select anything. Just hit export, and it'll give you everything. Listings lets you customize the display of some of your featured listings. So you can add virtual tour links if your MLS doesn't send us those, or open house data. You can customize the photos displayed, and you can also customize some of the property details, the description, price, latitude, longitude. You can exclude it from the featured properties page or your slideshow if you want to. And you can also add a custom link, which I usually see used for links to floor plan PDFs, but you would just have to enter a URL and then whatever you wanted the link to say. Okay, we've only got one tab left, which I don't know that we necessarily need to go through. This is Manage Users Offices, and this is where you could set up a roster for an office account. This was originally planned to cater to single agent accounts. So if you are a single agent account and this isn't relevant to you, feel free to log off now, and we'll just take a look at some of these. So this is where when you have an office account and you're setting up a roster, which is where the page that displays the list of your agents, it also controls the agents that are available if you're setting up contact routing rules, where you actually create these agents. Very, very self-explanatory. So you get your list of users under Manage Users, and you can review their bio pages. You can edit those, of course, by clicking on their name. Add new user. Most of this is going to be just contact information. Now, you do have a place where you can upload a photo. And you'll also want to make sure that you input their agent ID. This way, their listings will display on their bio page. So that's important to pay attention to. And there is a setting as the administrator. Let's see, where am I? And I am logged in as the agent, it looks like, so I don't see that. But what you should see as the administrator, we won't go over that today. Let's see, so these are pretty straightforward. Bio details and page header. This is a subheader that shows up at the top. And then the bio page details is like the About Me text that shows up below their basic contact information. Manage offices. You can create offices and assign your agents to different offices if you have more than one physical location and want to break your agents up into different pages. I don't recommend doing that if you only have one physical location because it just becomes more difficult to manage your roster at that point. So I would not do that if you only have one physical location. And then export users works essentially the same way as export leads. It's just a way to get a CSV file or a spreadsheet that has your user information in it. If you are an account administrator and trying to get a hold of all of your agents' passwords, that's usually the best way to do it because it will include fields for username and password in there. All right, so what I'm going to do now, I don't want to keep anybody too much longer. I know that we have spent more time than we usually intend to, and I apologize. I have a couple other questions I'm going to look at real quick, and I'm also going to open the floor. And so anybody that has questions that are relevant to the webinar, feel free to ask them now. Other questions, feel free to email into help@idxbroker.com. And yes, this is being recorded, and I do intend to get it up available on our website. It'll be at idxbroker.com/support. There's a similar one up already if you want to look at it, and it's in that training and webinars category on the help page. Let's see. I don't have a great way from this question box. Somebody's asking me to email them something. I don't have a great way to do that from here. So if you have questions that are unique to you, again, please email those to help@idxbroker.com. Pushing leads to top producer. Yeah, we can look at that one more time. It is preferences in the main menu and syndication in the submenu, and it is the very last item on the page. Or excuse me, I'm so sorry. It's lead management. Lead registration preferences. It's the very last item on the page here. And it does require that you already have a top producer account. And what you will have to do is go to Top Producer. You'll set up a new lead provider. You're going to give them this lead provider name, or select that lead provider name, and then whatever username and password is provided to you here. Do not use the username and password that you would use to log in at Top Producer or to IDX Broker. You want to use specifically what you see here. And at that point, it's going to push any new leads generated to Top Producer. It does not push changes to those leads to Top Producer. It's just new leads, so that's worth keeping in mind. I had a question that it looks like I might have missed regarding keyword and description tags on details pages being blank. If you do not have if you don't have keyword and description tags in your wrapper in the first place, that feature may not work for you, because the way that it works is it actually finds and replaces whatever you have in there already. So if you don't have anything in there in the first place, you may have problems with that feature. So even if you just want to put placeholders in there, go ahead. But you will have to have something in there for that to work. Let's see, question about easiest way to grab a wrapper for a WordPress site. Easiest way to do that is going to be dynamic usually. Let's see, so customize global HTML wrapper. These are not instructions I'm going to go over in detail. However, if you go to customize global HTML wrapper, hit this help button next to WordPress include. It's actually going to give you instructions for setting up a dynamic wrapper. There's a few different ways of doing it. My recommendation is when you get to this help topic, click this link for some updated, more simplified instructions. It's just a chunk of code that you add to a WordPress page, and then you point your IDX account at that WordPress page, and it should update automatically from that point forward, and usually it's pretty easy to set up. So that is the way that I would do it. And if you run into problems with it again, I just email support. Well, it looks like we are about ready to wrap it up. So I appreciate everybody joining me today. And if you have questions, you can email webinars@idxbroker.com if you're specifically looking for, links to webinars or something like that. We also have our support team available, help@idxbroker.com. And we have a 800 number, 1-800-421-9668. And I, again, appreciate everybody joining me today. So have a wonderful afternoon.